The rain started long before sunset. It was the kind of rain that did not ask for permission. It came with a heavy wind, bending trees, shaking rooftops, and filling the narrow village paths with cold water. Most people ran inside their houses and shut their doors before the storm grew stronger. But Mary had no strong door to close. Her house was a small one-room building at the end of the village. The roof leaked in two places. The wind always found its way through the cracks. She lived alone, surviving each day with the little she made from washing clothes for people. That evening, she sat close to her small lantern, hugging her wrapper tightly around her shoulders. Her body was tired. Her heart was tired too, but she was used to both kinds of tiredness. As the storm grew louder, Mary stood to move a bucket under a new leak in the roof. She placed it down gently. She whispered, "Please let this night pass quietly," but the rain only beat harder. Then she heard it. A knock. A soft knock at first, almost swallowed by the storm. Mary paused. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and listened. Another knock came. Louder. Urgent. Wet. "Who is there?" she asked, her voice shaking a little. There was no answer. Only the rain. Mary hesitated. She knew the world was not always kind. She also knew the night was far too cold for anyone to be outside. Something inside her whispered, "Open the door." She stepped forward and pulled the wooden door slightly. A man stood there, drenched from head to toe. Water ran down his hair, his clothes, even his eyelashes. He looked like someone who had walked through the heart of the storm. His breathing was faint. His eyes, though tired, were gentle. "Please," he whispered. "I need shelter just for tonight." Mary did not know him. She had never seen him in the village. Something about him looked different. His posture, his voice, the way he carried himself even while shaking from the cold. But he was shivering, and he looked like someone who had been running from more than just rain. Mary stepped aside quietly. "Come in." He entered slowly, his wet shoes making soft sounds on her floor. Mary gave him her only spare cloth, a long brown wrapper. He thanked her with a weak smile. She told him to sit near the lantern for warmth. The stranger obeyed without pride. He sat gently, his fingers trembling. For a moment, silence filled the room, except for the steady rhythm of the storm. "You did not have to open your door," he said softly. Mary looked at him. "Rain does not choose who to beat. If I close my door, who will help me when I am the one outside?" The man lowered his eyes, as if her words touched a hidden place inside him. She warmed a small bowl of leftover soup. He accepted it with both hands, as though it was something precious. He ate slowly, respectfully, like someone who had not tasted kindness in a long time. Mary watched him without speaking. She noticed a small cut on his forehead. She also noticed something else. He looked like a man carrying a secret. After eating, he lay on the floor where she placed a dry mat. Within minutes, his eyes closed. Mary covered him quietly with her only blanket. She did not know who he was. She did not know why he looked troubled. Mary woke before sunrise. She always did. Years of struggling had trained her body to rise early, even when her mind wanted to rest. The rain had stopped sometime in the night, leaving the village quiet and heavy with morning mist. She stretched her hands slowly, rubbed her eyes, and turned toward the mat where the stranger had slept. It was empty. The blanket she covered him with was folded neatly at the edge of the mat. His wet clothes were gone. The wrapper she lent him was gone too. The space where he lay was cold. Mary stood still for a moment, her breath catching in her throat. She did not know why her chest tightened the way it did. He was a stranger. She had not even asked his name. But something inside her had softened toward him last night, toward the tired way he spoke, the quiet gratitude in his eyes, the loneliness he carried like a silent shadow. She stepped outside, hoping he might still be nearby. But the compound was empty. Only the trees stood, dripping gently from yesterday's storm. The air smelled of wet sand and quiet secrets. Her house looked as lonely as she suddenly felt. Mary went back inside, her heart sinking in a slow, painful way. She saw the small bowl he used. He had washed it and placed it upside down near her pot. The gesture touched her deeply. Poor people understood the value of returning things clean. She sighed softly and bent to fold the blanket. That was when she saw it. A small object glimmered under the lantern's light. A ring. She froze. It lay where his head had rested, as if he placed it there on purpose. Carefully, gently, almost respectfully. Mary picked it up slowly, her fingers trembling. The ring was gold. Real gold. Not the kind sold in village markets. It had a smooth, heavy feel. On the inside, she saw a tiny carving of a crown. She had never seen anything like it in her life. Her heart beat faster. Why would a stranger leave something so valuable? Why leave it with her? Was it a mistake? Or a message? Mary sat on the mat and held the ring tightly. Her mind returned to moments from last night. The way he spoke, the way he looked at her when she offered him soup, the gentle pain in his eyes as though he carried a world on his shoulders. He did not look like a common man. He did not walk like one. Even drenched by rain, there was something noble about him. Something controlled. Something careful. But she pushed the thought away. Life had taught her not to dream too high. Rich people did not appear in stormy nights to sleep on the floor of poor women. Stories like that belonged in fairy tales, not in her small leaking room. Still the ring. She placed it in her palm, and for a moment she felt warmth spread across her skin, like the memory of the stranger's presence still lingered in her home. Mary hid the ring inside an old cloth and placed it in her wooden box. She did not know what to do with it. She did not even know what to think. But she knew one thing. Something unusual had visited her life last night. Something she did not understand. The villagers would soon wake. Life would continue. She would wash clothes, sweep compounds, carry water, and hide her tiredness behind a small smile as she always did. But deep inside her, a question kept whispering. Who was that man? And why did he leave her a ring? She stepped outside again. The sun was rising slowly, touching the wet ground with a soft golden glow. It looked like a fresh beginning, but Mary felt something else. A story she did not start was already moving toward her. The days passed slowly after the stranger left. Life returned to its calm, humble rhythm, but something inside Mary did not remain the same. She woke each morning expecting nothing unusual, yet her heart carried a small, quiet weight she could not describe. She still washed clothes for people. She still fetched water from the stream. She still greeted everyone with her gentle smile. But inside her wooden box, hidden under folded wrappers, the ring waited like a secret that watched her silently. Some nights, when the world was quiet and the moon shone softly through her window, she opened the box and held the ring again. She never wore it. She only touched it, tracing the tiny crown engraved inside. "Why me?" she would whisper. "Who are you?" She remembered the stranger's tired eyes, the calm way he spoke, the gratitude in his voice when she warmed soup for him, the way he slept, like someone who had finally escaped danger for one night. Those memories stayed with her, soft but heavy. Weeks turned into months. The rains ended. The dry season came. The village grew dusty again, and people returned to their usual gossiping, laughing, complaining, living. Mary remained the same woman, quiet, hard-working, unnoticed by many, yet admired by a few who knew her kindness. Sometimes, she wondered if the stranger ever thought of her again. Sometimes she told herself she was foolish for thinking about someone who probably had a home, a family, and a life far from her world. But her heart did not listen. He had come like rain. He had left like the morning mist. Yet something about him refused to fade. One evening, Mary sat outside peeling cassava. The sky was orange and calm. Children played nearby, their laughter floating through the air. She worked slowly, enjoying the small piece she could claim for herself. Then her neighbor, Mama Jonah, stopped by. "Mary, you look lost," she said gently. Mary forced a small smile. "I am fine." "No, you are thinking of something," the woman insisted. "Your eyes are far." Mary laughed lightly. "Maybe I'm just tired." Mama Jonah nodded, but her eyes were knowing. A woman's heart can hide a whole river. But remember, God sees. Mary looked away, her chest tightening in a way she could not explain. That night, she dreamed of the storm again. She dreamed of the knock on her door. She dreamed of the stranger standing there, dripping water on her floor. looking at her like she was the first safe place he had seen in a long time. When she woke, tears were already on her face. She wiped them away quickly. She did not want to believe her heart was tied to someone who left without a goodbye. But life has a quiet way of moving toward its destiny, even when people are unaware. On a clear morning, almost 4 months after the storm, Mary was returning from the market with a small basket on her head. She walked slowly, enjoying the cool air. The road was quiet until she heard something unusual. Horses. Not village horses. Not farmers' horses. These ones were strong, tall, moving with power. And she heard the metal sound of armor too. Mary stepped aside as 3 royal guards rode into the village. They wore red and gold, colors only used by the king's palace. The villagers came out of their houses quickly, whispering, watching, wondering. The guards were not smiling. They were searching. Their leader raised a scroll. "We are looking," he announced, "for the king's missing son. He disappeared months ago." Mary's basket almost slipped from her hand. A sharp, cold fear moved through her heart. The stranger, the ring, the crown carved inside. She felt her breath stop. She knew her quiet life was no longer safe from the truth walking toward her. The village had never seen such commotion. The peoples could not stop whispering loudly. Royal guards rarely came this far, and when they did, something serious was always happening. Mary stood on the side of the road, frozen in place. Her basket hung weakly from her fingers. Her heart thumped slowly, painfully, as if it was trying to break free from her chest. The king's missing son, months ago, disappeared during a storm. Her mind went straight to the ring hidden in her wooden box. The golden ring with the crown engraved inside. The same crown carved on the king's palace gates. She had seen it during festivals. She swallowed hard, unable to breathe properly. The head guard dismounted from his horse. He held a scroll with the prince's description written on it. His voice carried across the road as he read. A man in his late 20s, tall, calm eyes, a small scar above his right eyebrow. Mary felt her legs weaken. The stranger from the storm. He had that scar. She turned slowly and walked away, her steps shaky. Her basket felt too heavy now. She reached her small house and closed the door behind her. She leaned on it, pressing her palm against her chest. "No, no, no," she whispered. Not because she feared the prince, but because everything suddenly felt too big for her small world. She walked to the wooden box in the corner. Her hands trembled as she opened it. She unwrapped the old cloth and stared at the ring. It glowed softly in her hands as if it carried its own light. "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered. The stranger had trusted her with something he did not explain. If she showed the ring, questions would come. Whispers would follow. People would think she was hiding something, or someone. And she was, even if she didn't mean to. A knock suddenly hit her door. Mary jumped. For a moment, she stood still, unable to move. The knock came again, firmer this time. She quickly wrapped the ring back in its cloth and hid it in the box. She took a deep breath and opened the door. One of the royal guards stood there. His eyes scanned her small room before settling on her face. "You are Mary?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice barely steady. "We were told you sheltered a stranger months ago." Mary's stomach tightened. Her fingers curled into her wrapper. "I help when I can," she said quietly. The guard nodded slowly. "Did anyone unusual pass through here?" "Around the time of the heavy storm months ago." Mary looked down. She felt the truth standing behind her like a shadow. She felt the lie pressing against her tongue, begging to be spoken out of fear. But she also remembered the stranger's tired face. His whispered, "Thank you." The way he had slept peacefully for the first time in what seemed like days. "I saw no one, sir," Mary said softly. It was the first lie she had spoken in years. The guard studied her for a long moment. His eyes searched hers as if trying to read her soul. Then he nodded slowly. "If you see or remember anything, come to the palace. The kingdom is worried. The king is heartbroken." "I understand," Mary whispered. When he finally left, Mary closed the door gently. Her legs shook so badly she had to sit on the floor. She placed her hands over her face and let out a long, trembling breath. She had just protected a man she barely knew. A man who left her without a word. a man who might be a prince. Silence filled the room. But it was not peaceful silence. It was the silence of a woman carrying a truth she did not ask for. The village slowly returned to its normal noise, but Mary felt like she was walking inside a quiet world that nobody else could hear. Every morning she swept her little compound, washed clothes, fetched water, and greeted people with a small smile. But inside her chest, something heavy moved with each breath. She had never kept a secret before, not one that could shake a whole kingdom. Sometimes, while washing clothes by the stream, she paused and watched the water run over her fingers. She wondered if the prince was still alive. She wondered if he remembered her leaking roof, her warm soup, her blanket. She wondered if he left the ring because he wanted her to keep it, or because he had no choice. People talked everywhere. The prince disappeared during the storm. No one knows why. The king has not slept well for months. The guards will come back. Mary listened quietly and kept her eyes low. Nobody knew how her heart jumped each time horses passed the village road. Nobody knew how she touched the box under her bed every night just to be sure the ring was still there. One afternoon, after finishing her work, Mary sat outside to peel cassava. The sun was gentle. Children played nearby, their laughter lifting the air. But her mind was far away. She touched the peeling knife softly and whispered to herself, "Why did you choose my door? Why me?" The memory of that night was still sharp. His soaked clothes, his tired eyes, his quiet voice, the way he slept as if he had been running from the world. She blinked slowly. Her throat tightened. She was not a foolish woman. She knew princes did not just appear at the doors of poor people. But the ring in her box refused to let the truth be denied. Later that evening, Mary went to the stream again for water. The path was quiet. The only sound came from the rustling leaves. She moved with slow steps, her mind elsewhere. When she returned home, she bent down to lift her water pot. And then she froze. A shadow stood beside her house. Her heart jumped violently. She almost dropped the pot. The person stepped forward quietly. It was Jonah, a young man from her village. "Mary," he said softly, "I have been looking for you." She steadied her breathing. "Is something wrong?" Jonah shook his head. "No, but people are talking again. The guards asked more questions today. They said they will return with someone important." Mary's stomach tightened. "Who?" They did not say, but they looked serious. Jonah studied her face for a moment. "Mary, are you all right? You look worried these days." "I'm fine," she said quickly. He nodded slowly, though she knew he did not believe her fully. Jonah soon left, leaving Mary alone with her thoughts. When she entered her house, the air felt heavy and too still. She walked straight to her wooden box and sat beside it. She opened it carefully. The ring rested inside, glowing softly under the small lantern light. She held it in her palm. The tiny crown stared back at her like a reminder she could not escape. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice breaking inside the small room. She placed the ring back and closed the box gently. But just as she stood up, she heard footsteps outside her door. Slow, steady, purposeful. Her body froze. Another step, then another. Someone stood right at her door. Mary's breath shook. Her hands trembled. When the soft knock came, her whole world paused. Mary stood inside her small room, her hand resting on the wooden box that held the ring. Her breath rose and fell too quickly. She did not move. She did not blink. She only listened. The knock came again. Soft, patient, almost familiar. Her fingers trembled. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and took a slow step toward the door. Her heart did not beat fast. It beat deep, each thump echoing into her bones. She touched the door gently. "Who is there?" she whispered. There was a short silence, as if the person outside needed time to find the right breath. Then a voice answered. "Mary, it's me." Her hand slipped from the door. Her knees nearly gave way. She knew that voice. It was weaker now, quieter, but she knew it. It was the same voice that had asked for shelter on the stormy night months ago. The same voice that had thanked her softly when she gave him soup. The same voice that had disappeared before sunrise. Mary opened the door slowly. He stood there, not dressed like a prince, not dressed like a stranger running from danger. Just a man, tired, dusty, breathing carefully. His hair was longer. His beard had grown. He looked thinner. But his eyes, those calm, gentle eyes, were the same. For a long moment, they only stared at each other. He lowered his head slightly. I did not know if you would open the door for me again. Mary's voice came out soft. Where did you go? You left before morning. He swallowed hard. I had to leave quickly. I did not want anyone tracing my steps. If they found me here, they would drag you into a world you did not belong to. Mary's chest tightened. But you came back, she whispered. Yes. His voice broke a little. I could not stay away. I kept remembering your house, your kindness, your silence. He stepped forward gently, not too close. You are the only person who gave me shelter without asking who I was. Mary looked down, her fingers twisting her wrapper. I did not need to know your name to help you. His breath shook, as if her words hit a place he kept hidden. I left something behind, he said softly. A ring. Mary's heart jumped. She did not answer. She only looked at him. His eyes softened. Did you find it? Mary nodded slowly. I kept it safe. A long breath left his chest. A breath of relief. A breath of gratitude. A breath of something deeper. He looked around her small compound, then back at her face. May I come in? He asked. Mary hesitated for a moment, not because she feared him, but because she felt her world shifting again. Then she stepped aside. He entered quietly, just as he had on the night of the storm. The room looked different to him. Drier, cleaner, brighter. But the warmth he felt then returned in a slow, painful wave. He turned to her. I owe you the truth. Mary swallowed. I know who you are. He blinked slowly. You do. She nodded. Your ring told me. The man looked away, shame passing across his face. I never wanted my trouble to reach you. I was running from danger. There were people who wished to take my life. I escaped the palace during the storm because I knew they would not expect it. I walked for hours in the rain until your house was the only light I could see. Mary whispered, you would have died outside. Yes, he breathed, but you opened the door. Silence settled between them, deep, full, alive. He looked at her again. The kingdom thinks I am missing. My father, he is breaking. Mary felt something painful move through her chest. What will you do now? She asked quietly. He took a slow step toward her. Not close enough to scare her. Just close enough for honesty. I came back for the ring, he said. But I also came back for the woman who kept it safe. Mary's breath caught. Mary stood quietly in the room, her fingers pressed together, her eyes lowered. The man she once sheltered from a storm now stood before her with a truth too heavy for her small house. The air felt warm, yet her skin carried a quiet shiver. He watched her with careful eyes, the kind that understood fear because he had lived through it. I did not return to drag you into danger, he said gently. I only returned because I could not forget what you did for me. Mary lifted her eyes slowly. I did nothing special. He shook his head. You opened your door. In my world, that is more than special. In my world, doors close when people are afraid. Mary's chest rose and fell with a deep breath. She moved to the small wooden stool and sat down. Her legs no longer trusted themselves to stand. He remained where he was, as if respecting her space. After a moment of silence, she spoke softly. What do you want me to do? He looked around her room, his gaze lingering on the mat where he once slept, on the lantern, on the wooden box beside her bed. Then his eyes returned to her. I need to go back, he said. My father believes I am dead. My people are restless. The guards are searching every village. I cannot hide forever. Mary felt her heart sink slowly. She knew this moment would come, yet hearing him say the words made everything too real, too close. You are a prince, she whispered. He closed his eyes briefly. Yes, but that night, in this room, I was only a man running for his life. You did not treat me like a prince. You treated me like someone who deserved warmth. Mary's throat tightened. Her hands twisted her wrapper without her knowing. He took a small step closer. I cannot return without the ring. It is more than a piece of gold. It carries the royal seal. Without it, my story will sound weak. They will think I am an imposter, or that I abandoned my place willingly. That ring, it proves who I am." Mary looked at him for a long moment. She saw the truth in his eyes, the longing, the fear, the responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Then she stood up slowly and walked to the wooden box. She opened it with gentle hands. She unwrapped the cloth carefully. The ring lay there, quiet, soft, golden, the same way it had waited for months. She held it in her palm and turned to him. His breath shook as he saw it. Mary stepped closer, stopping just a little distance from him. She looked up at his face, really looked, trying to understand the man behind the prince. "This ring changed my life," she said softly. "Not because of what it is, but because of who left it behind." His eyes softened deeply. "Mary," she placed the ring in his hand. His fingers closed around it slowly, as if he feared crushing something fragile. Her voice lowered. "Go back to your father. Let him see you alive." He looked at her and something unspoken passed between them, a quiet connection born from a storm, strengthened by silence, held together by kindness. But then his voice lowered. "There is something else, something I must tell you." Mary's breath caught. "When I return," he whispered, "they will ask where I stayed. They will ask how I survived. They will want to know who sheltered me." Mary stepped back slightly. "I don't want trouble." "No," he said quickly, shaking his head. "Not trouble. I would never bring trouble to your door. But I cannot lie about the person who saved my life. Even if your name is only spoken in private, I must honor it." Mary felt tears gather in her eyes, slow, soft, unexpected. He continued, voice trembling, "And when everything settles, when my father sees me, and when the danger fades, I will return." Mary closed her eyes, holding her breath. "I will return," he repeated, "for you." The night before he left, the prince sat outside Mary's house with her. The moon was soft. The air was calm. The world felt as if it did not want to disturb them. Mary sat on a small wooden stool, her hands folded quietly on her lap. He sat on the ground facing her, his elbows resting on his knees, watching her with the kind of calm that came only from trust. Neither of them spoke for a long time. There are moments in life where words become too heavy. This was one of those moments. At last, he breathed deeply. "I never wanted you to fear me." Mary shook her head softly. "I did not fear you. I only feared what might happen to you." He looked down at the ring in his hand, the one she kept safe for months. "You protected me more than you know." Mary's eyes lowered to the earth. "I only did what any human should do." The rain was too heavy that night. He lifted his eyes to her face. Yet only one door opened. Her breath steadied. Her heart, however, did not. A quiet wind moved through the leaves, brushing their skin gently. It reminded Mary of that stormy night, the night the rain brought a stranger into her life without warning. The prince stood slowly and turned to face her fully. He did not stand like royalty. He stood like a man fighting not to lose a piece of his heart. "Mary," he said softly, "when I return to the palace, everything will change. People will talk. The kingdom will celebrate. But inside me," he placed his hand on his chest, "inside me, I will still remember the only place where I found peace." Mary's eyes glistened. She blinked slowly, trying not to let the tears fall. He took one careful step closer. "If I could choose where my life began again, I would choose that night standing at your door." Mary closed her eyes. His words were soft, but they entered her heart like water entering dry ground. When she opened her eyes again, he was still there, calm, steady, waiting. "I don't know how to be part of your world," she whispered. "That is why I will cross into yours," he replied. Her heart trembled. "I don't want a crown," she said quietly. "I did not offer you a crown," he said, his voice almost breaking. "I offered you myself." The silence that followed held more truth than any words could carry. Then, as though the night could no longer hold them there, he slowly reached out his hand. He did not touch her. He only held it toward her, giving her the choice. Mary lifted her hand slowly, gently, naturally, and placed it in his. Nothing loud happened. Nothing dramatic. Just two hands meeting, one from a kingdom, one from a small cracked house. Yet they fit as if they had been waiting for each other. The prince looked into her eyes. "When I stand before my father, I will tell him everything. But I will not ask you to follow me. I will come back for you when the time is right." Mary nodded slowly. her eyes warm with quiet tears. "And if the time never comes," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. "Then I will carve a path until it does." He let go of her hand reluctantly. He walked a few steps away. Then he turned. He looked at her one more time, as though he was leaving a part of himself behind in her small compound. "Goodbye for now, Mary." Mary held her breath. "Come back safe." He nodded once. Then he stepped into the quiet night, walking toward his destiny. When he disappeared into the trees, Mary stood still, her hand pressed against her chest. The moonlight touched her softly. The air wrapped around her gently, and she realized something. The rain did not bring her a stranger that night. It brought her a reason, a beginning, a story she would hold forever. She walked inside her house and closed the door quietly.